Welcome to Spaces, built by Bush Construction, a podcast that brings genuine conversations that opens minds to creative ideas in construction, design, and development. We'll share in-depth stories as an experienced commercial contractor and design firm, as well as our candid interviews with business leaders as it relates to the construction industry. So let's get started. Higher education experienced major disruptions in the spring of 2020 due to the outbreak of the coronavirus. On today's episode, we have the privilege of chatting with Mike Poster, CFO at St. Ambrose University, a private university in Davenport, Iowa. Mike will be sharing how St. Ambrose University overcame challenges, what education and student life will look like on their campus for this upcoming semester, and ways SAU has been able to differentiate themselves. Stay tuned as Mike Poster and AJ Loss, President and CEO of Bush Construction, discuss how St. Ambrose is navigating through the COVID-19 pandemic.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself, your role at St. Ambrose, and about St. Ambrose in general.
Sure. Well, I've been at St. Ambrose for a little over 12 years, which is interesting because when I got there was when the Great Recession hit. So I thought at the time, this is going to be the worst financial challenge I'm ever going to have is dealing with the Great Recession. Little did I know that 12 years later, be dealing with COVID-19 and all the ramifications that come with it. But I'm the Vice President for Finance. So I oversee the finances, obviously, but also physical plant, human resources, pretty much the administrative areas of the university. And, I think private higher ed has had its challenges over the last 12 years as well. We're about 3,000 students at this point in time, which is down from when I first got there. But we have very strong programs in healthcare, physical therapy, occupational therapy, physician assistant, speech-language pathology, and a very good business school. And we have some very strong arts and sciences programs as well. So, but certainly I think right now we're known primarily for our healthcare programs.
Well, I know St. Ambrose is known for having a great private education option here in the Iowa side of the river in the Quad Cities. So we're glad you're here. So you mentioned back 12 years ago, the economic downturn of 2008, 2009, that had a sort of an appearance. Tell me, what have been with this latest economic downturn, the coronavirus, in the spring of 2020, what have been some of the most significant impacts for St. Ambrose as it relates to that pandemic?
So the first thing is we went to distance education halfway through the semester. So we lost about half of our room and board revenue for the spring. And, initially people probably say, well, that doesn't sound like that much, but it was $3.3 million of revenue. And we came out right away when we told students we were going to distance education and said, we're going to refund you fully for the room and board that you're not using. I think that really bought us a lot of goodwill with the parents and our students. So that initially, but I think what we've seen since 2008 is affordability concerns for people attending college. College the price tag has gone up pretty significantly. And now throw on top of this COVID issues where students' part-time jobs probably aren't out there the way they were before. Internships have really dried up. And so my biggest concern is that those affordability concerns are just going to be more magnified than they were even back in 2008. So I think that's the biggest challenge that we're going to deal with. We really let up a little bit on some of our policies for registering for the fall. So it used to be you had to have your balance below $100 to be able to register. We gave them some flexibility because we knew that there were going to be some people who said, hey, I intended to work all spring and all summer to pay this bill, and now I don't have that ability. So we've tried to give them a little bit more leeway than we had in the past.
Sounds like you've been very accommodating of the students that you're educating for our future workforce.
Right.
So you mentioned the dorms. There's certainly a change there, but generally speaking, how has student life, dorm life, athletics, how has that changed for the short term and maybe even for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, for the going into the future, we actually we're full for the fall. So, and I think what we're seeing is that students saw that when we decided to go to distance education, we gave them full refunds. If you're renting an apartment or a house across the street from St. Ambrose, that guy doesn't care that classes are now online. You have a lease, he wants his payment. And I've talked to people whose kids go to Iowa and they're dealing with the same thing. So we're actually busting at the seams for our residence halls. And that's probably the biggest challenge that I see. I mean, I think we can socially distance students in our cafeteria. We can have grab and go lunches, meals, etc. We can certainly socially distance in the classroom. But how do you socially distance? We have 1,700 students that live on our campus. How do you make sure that they stay apart from each other to the greatest extent possible? So that's really the biggest challenge that I see. And one of the things we're talking about is maybe creating what we call a family unit among you and other students. And you certainly go out to your classes and you're interacting with other people, but you're doing that socially distant. But then when you're in the residence halls, you can take your mask off, obviously, around your roommates or around a certain group of people, but keep your group to a smaller number than you would normally. So my daughter's going to be a junior at Ambrose. She's in a townhouse with 7 other students. And I said, why don't you just kind of make that your social group for the year and sort of stay away from other students or limit it to that group, and that should help keep people as distant as possible.
You know, I love that answer. The family units, the family groups, to give somebody the sense of family with their small group of friends, but when in a bigger setting, still use the social distancing that everybody knows is going to be impactful. So does that apply both to the classroom and to sort of the campus setting? Does it apply in one place or not another?
We're going to ask people to socially distance everywhere on campus. So we looked at our numbers from last year, and about 50% of our classes have 15 or fewer students in them. So when you get into those 300, 400 level courses, and we think we can pretty well socially distance in a normal classroom with those courses. The other 50% are going to be greater than 15. And so what we're looking at there is using our Rogalski Center, which is we have a large ballroom, sectioning off the ballroom into bigger classrooms and having bigger classes in those areas. And then possibly where we can't totally socially distance, you go to the face-to-face one day, the next time in class you're online, and you just rotate throughout the semester. But the biggest concern is you've got freshmen and really in some cases sophomores who are still getting used to the college experience, who really need and value that personal interaction. And so we really want, to the greatest extent possible, have freshmen have in-person, face-to-face courses. Unfortunately, some of those bigger courses are those first-year courses. So that'll be a balancing act that we'll have to deal with. But we went through with an architect and with a furniture interior decorating firm, our furniture provider, and we marked off all of our classrooms what 6 feet is between each desk, each chair. And so we took some classrooms from 30 plus down to 15, 14, 12 in some cases. So we've gone and done that. We've also created, you enter the building here, you exit here. We're allowing greater time between classes, so that gives students more of a chance. It's not like everybody comes out all at once. And so we've really had to sort of re-engineer our which classrooms people are in. Some faculty are used to the fact that they teach every class in this room or in this building. And now if you've got a smaller class, you're not going to be in that 30-person classroom that you always like. You're going to be in a much smaller classroom because we need that 30-person one for somebody who's got a class of 20 or 15 or something along those lines. So the name of the game is going to be distancing everybody to the greatest extent possible.
I love how you've been really creative, reutilizing the space you have on site, doing studies to determine how can we best utilize this space. So tell me, as you've done that, in the back of your head, are there any things that you've said, we've realized there's a long-term benefit by maintaining this for either the students or the faculty? Are there any other proven concepts that you've come across where you say, we might make this change permanently?
I think one of the things that was really interesting, our athletic director does surveys of our athletes periodically throughout the year. And during the spring, when we were remote, our coaches were having continual WebEx or Zoom meetings with their athletes. And a lot of our athletes said, usually in the second semester, especially if you're a fall sport, I don't see my coach much because he or she is off recruiting and they're busy doing other things. And now all of a sudden, I think they found out they can really have a lot of interaction, but do it remotely. Whereas I think in the past, we always thought, boy, you have to do it. And we value the face-to-face interaction from faculty to student, staff to student, student to student. The other thing was we did a virtual orientation. So, usually we bring everybody in, we get their courses scheduled, and we have a big program. Well, maybe we can get them registered remotely in the future and really make that orientation something more valuable than just sitting there with a faculty member figuring out your first semester coursework. So, and we'll see on the teaching side of things, a lot of schools are kind of going to this hybrid model anyway, where whether you are in person or remote, you can take the same course at the same time. And so it's much tougher because you really have to create an in-person experience and an online experience. So it's a lot of work. But I think we'll see if there's value in us doing that on a going forward basis as well.
Yeah, those are neat concepts. And I know for our business, we've learned the same thing. There are some things that we had access to before, the video conferencing, where we typically make a phone call, and now we do a video conference, and there's just a better level of communication that happens when you do those. So congratulations to you guys for exercising that option. So tell me, I've got two high school kids, someone else who's either in high school or maybe someone considering college right now. As they navigate this unusual time, what recommendations might you have for them as they consider higher education?
I would say look at the plan that people are putting together, and are they following the guidelines that CDC and others are putting together? And I would look for the quality of that online experience, because I think that's a big part of the educational experience. Can you take all of your courses? If you're doing a science course, there's only so much value to being remote. And I would look at what your student is interested. Can they safely take a course? And we're going to do that with a lot of our lab courses. We're still going to do those face-to-face, but instead of just wearing a mask, you're going to wear a mask and a shield and maybe more protective equipment than you would typically, because you really can't have that course without being in close proximity to others. Nursing courses, nurses work on each other, so hey, grab the person next to you and check this or look at this or feel this. And can you do that? Can you continue to do that? Because some of those courses just have so much more value when you do things like that.
Yeah. I love how you respect the fact that online is okay, but there are some things you just can't do well online. And knowing that differentiator and giving students the in-person learning opportunities, that's really, really important.
And I think the biggest challenge for this last spring is everybody had about a week or 3 days or 4 days to get this done. And I think most students, both at St. Ambrose and nationwide, have said, hey, we get it. This was a unique situation, but I think they expect that online experience to be better now. So, okay, I got it in March, but now it's August or now it's September, and I expect you to have improved in how you deliver that. Because I think they value that face-to-face instruction more than they do the online experience. And so we're going to have to up our game if we have to go back to face-to-face, or when they're doing that hybrid face-to-face and remote education, we got to make sure that remote education is pretty high quality.
You're right. I think higher education and all education in general will get a pass for having to respond literally overnight to this thing. But given a few months, let's look at the institutions that are really planning ahead and creating a good program with a combination of online and in-person instruction. So tell me, I mentioned I've got a couple high school kids. What would you recommend someone who's considering St. Ambrose? Where do they go to find out more information?
We have an admissions and welcome center, but if you go to www.sau.edu, that's a great place to start. Even if you call our general number at St. Ambrose, ask for the admissions area. We've got a lot of admissions counselors ready to assist, and I think that's the best place to start. But I would also say the best thing you can do is come and meet with our faculty. I think that's really what sells St. Ambrose is. You come to our campus, you walk around, you see what the experience would be on campus. Make sure you have an interview with a faculty member and get to know them, because that's really what we're selling. We're selling that interaction with those faculty members. And I think if you come to campus and you meet with people, I think you'll see that St. Ambrose is really a great place to get your education.
I've been to that campus so many times, and it is just beautiful. There's nothing photos can do. Well, tell me, okay, so for a student that's maybe out of state, out of the country, do you offer virtual tours? And maybe specifically, are there things that you offer where a student at the last minute, coronavirus is changing all of our opinions on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. Are there options to enroll at the last minute, maybe a week or two before school starts?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think, there are times where, and we get this too, where maybe somebody shows up and it's before the Labor Day holiday and they come, maybe they go to Iowa or they even come to St. Ambrose and they go, this isn't what I want. And they'll make that decision. You can make the decision even after you've started some other place. But yeah, we see where people are making their decision right up into the end, and we really think we're having a very good year from a recruiting perspective. And part of that is we think, I don't want to go to these mega Big 10, Big 12 kind of schools with all of these students. I want a little smaller experience. And we've actually seen a huge uptick in recruiting from March 15th on. Whereas I think a lot of people saw things sort of fall off from that point. We actually pick things up at that point. So yeah, there's really, I think you have to go maybe a week or so into the semester. So if people are still thinking, I haven't made my choice or I'm just not sure, I think there's still plenty of time to make that decision.
Well, that's great to see that the enrollment has actually been far better than you anticipated. Did anybody have, as soon as this coronavirus hit and you changed the policy on campus, did anybody have any idea that this might happen, that it might actually be more beneficial to the smaller universities where you've got a more in-person feel, a little more of a family feel than some of the bigger mega universities?
I think the big schools try to sell that they give you a personal experience, and maybe they do. I wouldn't know. But I think this idea that you can control your environment a little bit more, we don't have 300-person classes. A big class for us is 25 students. And so I think this has made people look a little harder to say, yeah, I can still get a really good experience, but in a much smaller, bite-sized institution than some of these larger schools.
Yeah, very interesting. I can remember back when I was in college, I was in those 300-person lecture halls, and I'm trying to envision how would you possibly do that today? But
right.
Through a private college, a little smaller enrollment, a little bit more of a personal feel. Right. That is possible.
Yeah, and there, I'm guessing those institutions have to do those virtually. There's no other way to hold a class like that. Whereas we can say, maybe we can't do it 100% face-to-face, but we can do it at least 50% face-to-face. So you're still going to get that value. Not what we'd like, which is you're getting 100% face-to-face, but at least we can give it to you 50% of the time.
Yeah. It's great to know that you guys are being creative, adapting to what may be a new normal, and you've thought about these plans for a long time into the future.
Yeah, and they keep changing. That's the thing. I think as we learn more, or as we've had this spike now the last month or 6 weeks, that's made us reevaluate. And so I think on a daily basis, or at least a weekly basis for sure, we're continually looking at our plan, updating our plan, monitoring our plan, trying to figure out if there's more that we need to be doing. And it's been an interesting time. I
think the name of the game is going to be flexible. That's the new norm. You've got to be flexible and adapt to the changing times.
I told our president our contingency plan better have a contingency plan, because it's we just have to be able to pivot on almost a moment's notice. Now, we proved we could do that in March. Now to what quality? I think we did as good a job as we could. But there's going to be higher expectations, as I mentioned earlier.
We have a bonus round for you today. As AJ and Mike continue their discussion, Mike was kind enough to answer a few more questions that members of the Bush construction team have been curious about. A question that was asked was, is your faculty using benchmarks to monitor student engagement? In addition, are professors using any sort of data points to adjust their own teaching techniques when they need to incorporate online learning? And Allie gave that example of, so when teachers send out an instructional video, can the professors tell the length of time students are spending watching that video, as well as how many views each video receive? So if they've sent out, a 30-minute lesson and people are only watching 5 or 10 minutes, can they monitor that?
I'm not sure they can monitor things like length of time that they're doing anything, but I think they can measure your engagement for, there'll be an expectation that you get on a blog and that students are sitting there asking questions and answering questions between each other, and they can see how active you are in something like that. But I'm not sure they can really measure the length of time you were on or even how active you were in a particular course.
Well, as I think about that, that's really great, because as a student, I can log on and make it appear to the instructor like I'm paying attention, but I may not be.
Right.
I love the blog engagement use as a metrics to make sure the students are engaged. That's a really good idea.
Right, yeah. And I think our faculty are learning more. So we had those who taught online already, and those who teaching online wasn't their thing. So they probably didn't really go out and seek that out. But I think they've all learned now, and they've learned that they have to learn from those that are teaching online more as to how you ensure that engagement throughout a course.
And that segues into the last question, which is the future of education. Now that you've done some distance learning, where do you see higher education 10 to 15 years from now with the growth of online learning opportunities and making sure that quality that you've mentioned was there? Is that something that is an expectation of your professors going forward?
I really feel for the traditional college-age student, they value the face-to-face interaction. And so while I think there was always going to be a market for online education, I think we could use online as a tool to improve what we do in our face-to-face instruction. Our students, I think, at St. Ambrose and all over the country are saying 100% they want the face-to-face instruction. They want that interaction with the faculty. They want that networking with other students. And now, granted, if you're a working adult or if you're somebody who lives in a place where it's not possible to get to a college or a university, online is the way to go and the best way to go. But if you have the ability to go to a college campus, I really think that's what our students have told us and are telling us is that's what they want. They want that interaction with students and faculty.
Yeah, the student experience we've heard so many times, you just can't get that online. And for the student that wants that college experience, the in-person learning, there's no replacement for an online program.
Now, the transfer of knowledge, I think you can do online. I think that's still possible in an online environment. And I think the courses that we do that pretty well. But I think if you want that relationship, and I think that's the part that is key for people. And that's why I say if you want to come and check out St. Ambrose, you have to come meet the faculty, because that's really where you start that connection with them and start that relationship.
I appreciate that, especially when you said that, come on campus, because I think people's expectation is, where's the link to the virtual tour? Where do I register online? So the fact that Ambrose is suggesting, no, come meet us. We are open. We want to see you. That's huge.
Yeah, and our conversion rate, once we get somebody to campus, and I probably should know the number better, but I want to say it's 70%. I mean, it is so much higher than somebody who just sends an application in, gets their award letter, and is trying to do everything from just getting on different sites and measuring and monitoring which school they should go to. Show up, walk around, check out the environment, check out the vibe on campus, meet some people. I think that's really what. And we always feel like if we can get them on campus, we got a really good chance to get them. If they do everything remote, we may not meet all the boxes they've got out there to check.
So is there a virtual tour option where if somebody wants to do that, and is that something you would encourage?
I would. I think as a first step, I certainly would. We had to go I think just about every school had to create a virtual tour because, you're in that key time period from March 15th to May 1st. Now, we actually extended that to June 1st, and I think most schools did as well. But you're in that key time period where you're really trying to finish this class up and bring this class in. And all of those people who are still sort of trying to figure out where they want to go or trying to look at their different aid packages, that was critical to at least show them initially. And for a while there, we weren't allowing people on campus, so you couldn't come and do that tour. We now allow that. But I would always say, hey, check out the virtual tour first, but if you really want to check it out, walk on campus and see what we have to offer.
It's pretty impressive to know that your enrollment numbers are so good, despite the fact that you shut the campus down to visitors for a period of time.
Yeah, we definitely buck the trend there. When we bring in our enrollment management consultants and they're like, here's what everybody else did, and it's a collection of their other clients, and you can just see their numbers just fall off, and our numbers just continued to go up. It was nice to see. So, that doesn't happen that way every year, as you know, but it's nice to know that we were able to buck the trend. And this was, if of any year to buck the trend, this was the year to do it, because there's going to be a lot of financial stress out there anyway.
Congratulations on that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And providing that comfort level as a differentiator is huge, because sometimes now, as a parent, it's, are you going to sit out a semester for this, or are you going to go back? So being a virtual tour, I don't know, would give me that comfort to send my student back, but being able to go there and see what do you have in place to make sure that he's going to be safe.
Right.
That would definitely make me push forward and say, let's give this a go.
We've communicated pretty well. So we had remote or virtual town hall meetings. So graduate students, international students, first-year students, returning students, we had them with our faculty, we had them with our staff. So ask your questions in advance. If anything pops up during the meeting, feel free to go in the chat and ask a question. But we've tried to be try to over-communicate early on so that they understood the things we were doing and how we were trying to make things safe on campus. So it's been interesting. Once again, a lot of interaction, but I think that was all very positive. We actually surveyed our students and the parents. Now, we did this back in May, I think, so a couple months ago, but overwhelmingly 80+% said we're comfortable or very comfortable coming back and want to come back. And I think the parents said, we want you to go back. So,
May was the perfect time to do that.
I think everybody was like, yeah. And I still think, our students, I think, now this is pretty anecdotal because I think it's a small population of students, but we had a faculty member said she's been talking to her students, and they said, don't just immediately send us back if there's something that we'll hang out on campus for a while. We want this experience. Don't jump the gun and do something real quick. Now we'll see. We'll have to monitor the situation. If there's a bad outbreak, we'll have to do something. But they wanted to be on campus. That's for sure. That's very good.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the conversation, Mike. I appreciate you sitting down with us today and sharing some more information about St. Ambrose University, what the plans are for the next few months or even years ahead. It sounds like things are looking bright for St. Ambrose, and we appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.